now the next question is, how long is February?
Right.
Will I make it? So.
I will put the flash drive. And then we can pull up a chair if, a couple of chairs if, while one takes presenting, you all want to, just kind of sit here. Feel free to move those wherever you like.
I'm like, I would like to drink first so I can get off my feet.
Yes.
I run out of breath very easily these days.
That's not it.
I used to go here.
Oh, there we go.
You know, hit the date thing. That one.
Okay. And then, is that the only one?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has all three of us put together.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And then we have a slide advancer. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so feel free to use this if you'd like to.
Forward?
Yes.
And then pointer, is there a pointer? Right
Yep,
there.
perfect. And then IT will come and get you all set up with your microphones.
Okay.
I know that there was going to be one lapel mic and then two handheld mics.
Okay.
But since you're presenting sequentially, if you want to pass off the lapel or however you want to organize that,
That works.
feel free to do so.
Perfect.
Is there
Thank
anything
you.
else I can do?
No, that's it.
Okay. I'll just be right up at the top of the stairs, so if you
Okay.
need anything, feel free to holler.
All right.
Hey, David. Good. How are you? Yeah.
Actually, we're going to go take turns.
I used to rule the world, seas would rise when I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone, sweep the streets I used to own. I used to roll the dice, feel the fear in my enemy's eyes, listen as the crowd would sing. Now the old king is dead, long live the king. One minute I held the key, next the walls were closed on me, and I discovered that my castle stand upon pillars of salt and pillars of sand. I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Mirror, mirror, my sword and shield, I'm missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, once you've gone, it was never, never alone. This word, that was when I ruled the world. It was the wicked and wild wind, blew down the doors to let me in, shattered windows and the sound of drums. People couldn't believe what I'd become, and
bringing me out the dark. Finally, I can see you crystal clear. Go ahead and sell me out and I'll lay your ship, babe. See, I'll leave with every piece of you. Don't underestimate the things that I will do. There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch and it's bringing me out the dark. The scars of your love remind me of us. They keep me thinking that we almost had it all. The scars of your love, they leave me breathless. I can't help feeling we could have had it rolling in the deep. You have my heart inside. You played it to the beat. Baby, I have no story to be told, but I've heard one on you and I'm gonna make your head burn. Think of me in the depths of your despair. Make a home down there as mine sure won't be shared. The scars of your love remind me of us. They keep me thinking that we almost had it all. The scars of your love, they leave me breathless. I can't help feeling we could have had it rolling in the deep. You have my heart inside. You played it to the beat. Could have had it rolling in the deep. You have my heart inside, but you played it with a beating. Throw your soul through every open door. Count your blessings to find what you look for. Turn my sorrow into treasured gold. You'll pay me back in kind and reap just what you sow. We could have had it all. We could have had it all. Oh. It all. We could have had it rolling in the deep. You have my heart inside. You played it to the beat. Could have had it rolling in the deep. You have my heart inside. But you played it to the beat.
When you're down and troubled and you need a helping hand and nothing's going right. Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh yeah, babe, to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yeah, yeah, yeah. You got a friend. If the sky above you should turn dark and full of clouds, and that old north wind should begin to blow, keep your head together and call my name out loud now. Soon I'll be knocking upon your door. You just call up my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh, yes, I will see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, yeah. All you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, ain't it good to know that you got a friend? People can be so cold. They'll hurt you and desert you. Well, they'll take your soul if you let them. Oh, yeah, but don't you let them. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Oh, baby, don't you know about winter, spring, summer, or fall? Hey, now all you got to do is call. Lord, I'll be there, yes, I will. You got a friend. You got a friend, yeah. Ain't it good to know you got a friend? Ain't it good to know you got a friend? Oh, yeah, yeah, you got a friend.
Sometimes you just really, really want to hear a certain song. With Spotify Premium, you can play any tune you like, anytime you like, even on mobile. Listen on demand with Spotify Premium. Get it now.
A white coat there.
So I suppose this is their
Hold on to me as we go,
Hi. Good.
as we roll down this unfamiliar road. And although this wave is stringing us along, just know you're not alone.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
bit after that.
Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. The trouble, it might drag you down. You get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone. 'Cause I'm gonna make this place your
It was amazing. We went somewhere. I guess what was it? Saturday. And like everything. Like so I guess between Wednesday. lives. I want you to know I'm going to be more active in January to the next presentation. But I can't stay for the presentation because I'm not going to do it. But I'm going to do a couple of things on the microphone, and then Anna can come down and introduce you all.
I let you push me past the breaking point. I stayed for nothing, so I found everything. You held me down, but I got out.
go back by one. But some people can have a little flexibility. Your people will leave when they try to and if people have questions, they'll stay together. Keep eating your meals. Thank you all for coming today. It's getting a little warmer, maybe. It's not 8 degrees outside. I can't even get my head around 8 degrees. I don't know. I'm Karen Chavez. This is our January meeting, our kickoff for 2016. We are doing a couple of things this year as we get started, and we thought our last presentation in 2015 was on eating, and we thought it would be great to start off a new year with everyone's New Year's resolutions on fitness and health to talk about physical activity and why it's important to you. And so that's the topic today. A couple of things that I wanted to make you aware of before we get into today's discussion is we here at the School of Medicine certainly appreciate the values for increased physical activity, and we've been looking for ways to support staff and faculty and students in that regard. And so when you get your survey at the end of the program this month, and you'll get it probably later this week, we're asking some questions about a couple of initiatives that we are going to get started with promoting, and we're wanting to see if there are others who might be interested in volunteering or supporting some of these efforts. The first one is something that we're calling Stairmasters, and so as it gets colder, it's harder sometimes to get outside. If you don't have a gym membership, getting outside and getting that walk in that you might get in the evenings or the mornings, a little harder to do when it's freezing cold out or when there's snow on the ground. And so we're trying to use what we have, and we have all of these wonderful buildings with stairways. And so we are starting a poster campaign where we put notes on elevators on why you should take the stairs, and then notes in stairs to encourage you to continue to take those stairs. And we're going to try to promote expanded use of the stairways, especially through the winter months, to promote increased physical activity. So this initiative is called Stairmasters, and if you would like to be a part of Stairmasters by maintaining the posters and notifications in your building or on your floor, you'll have an opportunity in the survey to sign up and let us know. It's a very simple task. We've created some posters, and all you have to do is print them off and stick them on the wall. And so that's going to be the Stairmasters initiative. The Smart Wellness Committee has been working on an initiative that includes making walking trails for the HSC campus, and it would help you track the distance that you're walking. And so if you would like to be involved, we're going to probably launch that in the spring when the weather's better to be out. But if you'd like to be involved in that initiative, you'll also have an opportunity to sign up when you get the survey after this program. And then the third thing I want to tell you about, the third of four, is we have a group that has very preliminarily begun to look at dance as an interest. How many of you came to the winter social? Okay, so we did the whip and the nae-nae, which was all new for me, but the point was to get up and get moving, and so we have some members of the staff who are interested in dance, and we're looking for ways to create a dance effort or dance initiative. I wouldn't say a dance class, but you'll be learning to dance. Social dance will be covered, and it's really just to encourage people to get up, get out, and to maybe go learn to do the foxtrot or the tango or the merengue or the waltz or something else you're wanting to do. So that'll be an initiative that's coming up in this spring as well, and you'll have an opportunity in your survey if you're interested in either participating or supporting the creation of, you can tell us there. And the last thing that we're looking at, and this is, I don't want to get the cart out before the horse, but you'll be seeing some information coming in the next several months about a study that we're looking at trying to do to foster and promote more physical activity. And so stay tuned for more on that, and we'll maybe touch base on that as we get further into this. So look for these opportunities to get up and get fit. I handed out some handouts as I was coming in, just 5 points of why sitting is not your friend. And I thought now would be a good time to be mindful there. If you Google sitting is the new smoking, you'll find lots of articles from Forbes and Huffington Post and some of the other publications about sedentary lifestyles and why they're bad for you. So we're going to talk about that more today. I appreciate your coming. I will be sending out some information on the SMART programs for the rest of 2016. We have a lot of things that we have in store for you. So enjoy today's presentation. Enjoy your lunch. Tell us what you want to see more of. Those surveys are very important to get back because Anna and I sit down and we say, okay, what are they telling us? You've told us you want to have something on dealing with conflict and difficult people. We're going to give you that. We're working on lining up a speaker for that now. I want to remind you that we have the staff retreat that is going to be on May 18th. It's a day-long retreat. For those who can't come all day, it's divided so you can neatly participate in the morning or the afternoon. If you can come all day, there's enough content to keep you engaged through the whole day. So mark your calendars for May 18th. And with that, I think Ms. Chalfant is still handing out lunches, but we'll get Anna in here and she'll introduce our, there she is. We'll get Anna to introduce our speakers and enjoy today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anna Chalfant. I send you all the emails, so thank you so much for not just immediately deleting them. Appreciate that very much. And thank you guys for coming out today with the cold weather. I'll be introducing your 3 speakers for today. First, we have Dr. Barbara Stetson. She's an associate professor of psychological and brain sciences and director of the University of Louisville Health Behavior Change Research Program. She is a clinical psychologist with specialization in the area of health psychology. A former School of Medicine faculty member, she has been on the U of L Belknap campus since 2002. Dr. Stetson's research focuses on health-related behavior change in adults with an emphasis on psychological aspects of living with chronic disease and promotion of functional status and quality of life. Her 2 primary areas of research are the psychology of exercise and diabetes self-care. Next, we have Dr. Moksha Gundam. He is an associate professor of endocrinology and metabolism, chief of the endocrinology section at the Louisville VA, medical director of the Diabetes and Obesity Center at U of L Physicians, and medical director of islet transplantation. He has been at U of L and the VA since 1992 with a focus on diabetes and obesity. He is active in local, regional, and national societies and has a keen interest in prevention and treatment of diabetes and its complications. And finally, we have Dr. Rachel Keith, who is an assistant professor of cardiology and member of the Diabetes and Obesity Center, both with U of L and U of L Physicians. Her research focuses on how the environment, including physical activity, contributes to cardiovascular disease and metabolic disorders with interest in how to prevent the environmental interactions from increasing disease risk. As part of her faculty duties, Dr. Keith also participates in the Preventive Cardiology Program and Advanced Heart Failure Clinics. So with all that information, I can assure you that they are very qualified and excited to talk to you guys today about physical activity. So without further ado, please give them a round of applause.
Let me see if I can get this to work real fast. I think we're good. I think everyone can hear me now. All right, so this is going to be a little bit of a different setup today, probably for our talk. We scheduled some more than one speaker today, just in case I wasn't here. We could cover all the bases. So each one of us is going to kind of give you a little background on our specialty. So my specialty is more in cardiovascular disease. I'm going to ask some questions to just get you all thinking, and the next 2 speakers will go into more detail or more of the nitty-gritty about some of the physical activity benefits. So just as an overview really fast, there's a lot of heart-healthy benefits of exercise. It lowers the rates of heart disease in general. It reduces triglycerides, which is bad. It increases HDL, which is known as your good cholesterol. It can lower your blood pressure. It improves glucose metabolism and insulin resistance. This is important in heart disease because I tell people diabetes and heart disease are like cousins. They're so interrelated that a lot of times you have both together. If you get one, a lot of times you end up with the other one, and a lot of the same mechanisms or triggers cause both diseases. It can also reduce body weight. It reduces inflammatory markers, and that's important because a lot of heart disease is considered to be a complication of chronic inflammation. It lowers your heart rate, improves endothelial function, so that's the lining of the blood vessels that we know is very important to help keep your blood vessels and your heart healthy. It also helps with vascular remodeling, which means your blood vessels get bigger. If your blood vessels get bigger, it can deliver blood better and get to all the areas it needs to get to. And then it also enhances nitric oxide bioavailability. What that does is that also helps dilate your blood vessels, which means they're bigger and you're getting blood to the rest of your body. So all these benefits that we're talking about today are actually coming from epidemiological studies and not necessarily animal studies or mechanistic studies. So the caveat is these are all associations. This is what we see happen in humans in real life when we look at people. We control for things like diet. We control for things that may also affect a lot of these same things, so we know they're associated with exercise. As a caveat, we can't totally prove that exercise is the only one cause of this. So we know this is what happens in humans, but some of the studies that are ongoing are trying to help explain what causes these changes in humans. So the first one is, by a show of hands, we're going to do a couple true and false questions and then go over the answers. So the American Heart Association recommends 30 minutes of exercise a day or more. So do you think this is what you need for a healthy heart? If you think it's true, raise your hand. If you think it's false, raise your hand. All right. It is actually false, which is pretty amazing because most people think you have to go to the gym and slave away to get any sort of heart protection. And it's not true. As little as 2,000 extra steps, I should have put extra in big, bold, all caps, of your normal daily capacity can reduce your long-term incidence of cardiovascular disease by 10%, which is pretty good. If you increase that number to 4,000 steps, you improve your risk of cardiovascular disease up to 16 to 20%. That is the same as someone taking a statin, the same reduction. Now, I'm not going to tell you to walk 4,000 steps and go off your statin because your statin does other protective benefits. But if you added both of those together, you're going to get a lot more benefit. And so 2,000 steps is typically very, very doable. It doesn't have to be in one setting. It doesn't have to be fast. It can be as easy as you parked a little bit farther away when you go to work or the store. The next one was a study done that looked at about 55,000 adults. It was centered in Texas. And they looked at a quarter of them were runners, and then 75% were not runners. And they showed that if someone ran as little as 5 to 10 minutes a day, and it could be at a slow pace, like about 6 miles per hour, you could reduce heart rate morbidity and mortality by about 40%, and you can reduce overall causes of mortality by about 25%. So it doesn't take long periods in a gym. It doesn't take only intense activity. It takes consistency, and it takes being active and moving to help improve the conditions that can affect your heart. So sedentary behavior. Sedentary behavior is as healthy as smoking. So everyone should raise their hand for true because Karen led with sitting is the new smoking. So we'll skip that one. And it is true. The current study is that American adults are sedentary for an average of 7.7 hours per day. I actually think that average is low in the particular study I got it out of. I think other people will present later today that those hours have gone up. Sedentary behavior is very different than physical activity. So sedentary behavior can exist with high levels of total activity. And it increases both fatal and non-fatal heart problems. So if you look from your left to right, these are the main causes of sedentary behavior in the U.S. I was actually surprised to see that they put driving above office work. But it's driving, watching movies, anything where you would sit, like reading, crafting, anything where you're sitting still doing something, talking on the phone, the time that you would spend sitting, eating with your family, all these add up to your total sedentary time per day. So how do we fix it? The first one for me is a representation of like extreme athletics or a lot of physical activity. The second one is a standing desk, which a lot of people have started to use or consider doing to not sit. And the last one is like just a 5-minute break. So who thinks number one would be the best way to combat sedentary behavior? Nobody. Okay. Who thinks number two is the best way to combat sedentary behavior? Okay. And who thinks number three is the best way? All right. Well, this is actually done by a colleague of mine out of Baltimore. He's one of the researchers that's looked at this. Increased leisure time activity does not actually overcome the detrimental cardiovascular effects of sedentary behavior, which is amazing to me because I sit for an hour to drive into work. I sit at my desk. I go to the gym on the way home. It takes about 30, 40 minutes. Get back in my car, sit for 30 to 40 minutes and go home. And that exercise I did has not done anything for my heart to combat all that sitting I did. It does have its own benefits, so don't give up your leisure time activity, but you need to do more than just put in gym time. Standing desks are actually not been proven to be that effective. So by just standing, we looked at sedentary behavior is described a lot of times in terms of METs, which is how much energy you use. And sedentary behavior is below 1.5 METs. Slow walking is around 1.8 to 2. So you need to actually be moving or doing something to kind of break that plateau of sedentary behavior. So this is what the newest recommendations are. It's small breaks in time. So you can Google coffee break workouts, things you're supposed to be able to do at your desk or in a stationary position where you don't get sweaty or smelly or knock anything over. Using the stairs, I get up and actually go get coffee somewhere else because it's also going to make me get up to have to go to the bathroom later. So I actually have to get up and physically move to do stuff. Going to talk to people instead of emailing or texting them. Little things like that, if you can break up your periods of sitting, even if it's just small 5-minute breaks, is much more effective than any of these other interventions. So the next one is I have heart problems, so I shouldn't exercise. Who thinks that's true? All right, good. No one thinks that's true because I hear it all the time from my patients. So, and my patients' families who are very concerned when they come in. So exercise after a heart attack can prevent a second one, and it also reduces death rates. Heart failure, which is one of the main areas I work in, actually has a big improvement in functional outcomes, reduced mortality, reduced hospitalization, which is big, and quality of life. It also, for people that have funny heartbeats like atrial fibrillation or other arrhythmias, it is actually safe. And I wanted to put mostly in there because if you do have a heart condition, you should see your physician or your provider to make sure it's safe. There are some rare cases with certain genetic disorders that there are certain things we shouldn't be doing. But the other interesting thing is insurance more and more is paying for cardiac rehab at this point. They're acknowledging that the exercise and that lifestyle component is so important that we need to get you back out there and back physically active in a safe way. So what types of exercise should you do? There's all different types of exercise. A lot of people pick one and stick to it, but realistically, you get the most benefits out of doing 4 different types. You're going to do strength training, you're going to do cardio, you're going to do flexibility, and you're going to do balance. You want all of them to help with making you a healthier person. What we tell people in our preventive clinic is to start with 5 minutes a day and make it a habit. So 5 minutes a day, just like brushing your teeth or making dinner. Find a time, either before dinner or after dinner or before you brush your teeth, and do it for 30 days solid. Once you've done it for 30 days solid, 7 days a week, it's that consistency we're really looking for, then you can add either another 5-minute session or go up to 10 minutes. Because the problem is people start out gung-ho and you're trying to do 20 to 40 minutes and then you can't fit it in, so you skip it. And then it doesn't fit this day and you skip it. So if you start small and work your way up, you can start to see those benefits already with 5 minutes. And then you can work up to the 20 to 40 minutes, which is about where you hit a plateau for heart health. So in summary, almost everyone can benefit from increased activity. Exercise don't have to be too intense or for too long of a period of time. We just want consistency. And don't forget to move during the day. Working out once a day is not enough. So next we have Shri. Dr. Mukshagundam will be talking about diabetes and physical activity and obesity.
Thanks, Rachel, for the nice introduction and covered a lot of things. There is going to be overlap on some of these issues, and that's deliberate because we want to emphasize things over and over again. What I'm going to talk to you is mainly going to be related to obesity and diabetes and go over how they're connected to physical activity. And I'm going to emphasize more on sedentary lifestyle and how to overcome that rather than exercise itself, because it's something that is not recognized, because the sedentary lifestyle, which is most commonly found in modern society, something that people 100 years ago really wanted to be like what we are today, not to go in the farm and work hard, but sit and get everything done. And we have reached there, and then resulted in a number of problems, including obesity, diabetes, and its consequences that includes heart disease. So sedentary lifestyle is defined as a lifestyle of inactivity in which a person fails to participate in at least 20 consecutive minutes of exercise 3 times per week. So what ways, how do we get there, and what are the things that really constitute this? And this is what happens because, during the course of the day, we've come to the point where there's a lot of online activity. Children, of course, are in PlayStation and other kinds of games that they can do. You can order food and anything else you want delivered home. And so really the need for to be physically active has markedly decreased, and which is one of the reasons why we are in this situation. So this leads to a number of problems, and it has become recognized that sedentary lifestyle is actually one of our worst enemies. So, the dangers of sedentary activity, and these are famous journals like, Women's Health Magazine and the Baltimore Sun, Washington Post. So you don't need to go to a medical journal to get this information. Everybody has recognized now that this is an important thing that we need to address. So I'll go through some of the things that really is the basis for these kinds of conclusions that we have made, and some simple things that helps us understand why small amounts of activity actually are very helpful. So the major health risks that are associated with sedentary lifestyle, one of the first things is obesity, weight gain, and I'll go through the energy balance to give you an outline of how small amounts of activity contribute to maintaining your weight. Obesity then in predisposed individuals in particular will lead to diabetes, and that in turn heart disease, stroke, metabolic syndrome, and several types of cancer that are related to weight and insulin resistance. So there are a number of consequences that flow from being physically inactive. So that's why we need to address this problem. So if you look at this slide here, this is time spent in various intensities. So accelerometer is one way of measuring how much of activity one is doing, and we can try to figure out, so in a 16-hour waking period, what we have here is 63% of the time, people are inactive. About 5 hours and 45 minutes is light activity, and is about 15 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity. So, the majority of your waking time we are spending in being inactive. And this really, the inactivity that we are doing is not because we are doing less of this. We are taking this light activity and moving it into sedentary. And that is possible because of all the technologies that we have. So what previously required some amount of, moving around, currently we don't need to do that. We can sit in one place and do everything. So that's the reason why we are moving towards, that most of this increase in sedentary activity comes from having less of light activity and more of sedentary activity. So if you look at this is a study that looked at the old order Amish men and women and compared them to current day Americans, and you can see how much less of physical activity there is. So the Amish are 3 times more physically active than the average American, and it is not because they're doing any vigorous running or they're running marathons or anything. They're just physically active on a daily basis. And that's the reason why I put up this thing to show how much less activity there is in our daily life. Now, how is this important, and how can we break this down into calories so we understand how this affects our body weight? So in a typical example, if you take about 2,800 calories or so, what you have is that the majority of your calorie that is burned is your basal metabolic rate. That is just to maintain your living, that the body is burning calories. Then you have what is called the thermic effect of food. So whenever you eat food, it has to be digested and it has to be metabolized, and that itself consumes some energy. So these are kind of somewhat fixed. Of course, we can change this. If we change muscle mass, you will have increased basal metabolic rate. But in general, these are kind of fixed. This is the area where you can have most impact on what happens. So that is the energy expenditure related to activity, or EEE. Now that is divided into, in the past we looked at activity associated energy expenditure as exercise. But in reality, it's not exercise. It's exercise only a small component of your energy expenditure of activity. There was a study done about 10 years ago at the Mayo Clinic, which really brought this into the attention to a larger number of people. And what they did was they took individuals who were self-reported totally inactive couch potatoes, and some were obese and some were lean, and they hooked them up. They actually wore what looked like a spacesuit. It had about 360 sensors, and it would measure every little activity that would happen. And what they found was that the lean individuals were having more activity than the obese individuals, even though none of them did any exercise. They were monitored. Actually, they had to stay in a room to measure their activity and everything. And so what they found was, they termed this as non-exercise associated thermogenesis. So if you're an active individual, you're actually spending a lot more calories as NEAT. And if you're a sedentary person, you're spending very little energy as NEAT. And that difference can account for a lot of differences in weight. So this is give you these numbers, your total, adult 2,000 to 3,000 calories of energy expenditure, and these are in children. This gives you the percentage, of the activity, 20 to 30%, 10% is thermic effect of food, 60 to 70% is your resting metabolic rate. So if you look at it, this is not purposeful exercise. So this is not, this is exercise. This is simply fidgeting, getting up to, get a drink or just, doing something around while you're watching a TV or doing something. So what you find here is that out of the 675 calories, exercise accounted for 225 calories. So the remaining of it is actually coming from the non-exercise associated thermogenesis. So there is a significant amount there, about 450 calories a day, that is coming from the non-exercise associated thermogenesis. So if you add up these things, on a daily basis, you will find that it could have a significant impact. So what you have here is that, 1/3 of your activity associated energy expenditure is coming from exercise. Most of it is coming from, not from exercise, but from routine physical activity. So if you put these together, where does it come? Moving, using a treadmill or just walking up and down the stairs. So these are the things that add up to that. Now, where are the opportunities here? So in a typical day, if you take an average person, they're getting up here, eating breakfast and getting ready, driving to work on computer for 4 hours, take lunch, work on computer for another 4 hours, and then you have drive home, eat dinner, read and watch TV. So when you look at this, what you will find is that there is ample opportunity within that period of time for you to actually have increased your energy expenditure by non-exercise associated thermogenesis. So you'd have to do small amounts of activity throughout the day, and that has been shown to be beneficial. And not only is it beneficial, it is, not having it has an impact on your risk for diseases, even if you're physically active. So even if you're doing exercise, but the rest of the day you're just sitting in one place, you're at a higher risk than if you're actually more physically active throughout the day. So simple things that you can see is like how much energy that is being spent. You can see that most of it here are not much. If you're standing and surfing the web, or if you're reading standing, it's slightly higher, but these are the ones that have, you can go and do window shopping, and that will actually be helpful in terms of burning calories as opposed to simply sitting. So that's something that is very helpful. So this is one example where you can actually show that if you increase your non-exercise associated thermogenesis, that is, you will actually be able to lose weight. So in this example, it could get a person who was weighing 180 pounds down to 156 pounds, merely by increasing, not by asking them to exercise more, but by simply working for longer, the non-exercise associated thermogenesis. So it's important for us to recognize this, that small decreases in energy expenditure actually leads to weight gain, because if you lose about, that means if you spend 75 calories per day less, it's a very small change that is occurring, but it will eventually, over the next several months, will lead to weight gain. So you can gain, 3,500 calories, so you can gain about 1.5 pounds per, 1 pound in every 1.5 months. So in a year, you can gain a significant amount of weight by simply, decreasing your physical activity by 75 calories per day. So the opposite is that if you can spend it, then you will be losing weight. Now, this is a bit more complicated than that. I won't go into the complexity of how these equations will work up. So small decreases in energy expenditure will add up. So if you take new technology, for example, it's a computer, busy, you drive a car, instead of walking. So you can, if you do all of these things, if you have a 2.5 MET difference in 5 hours for a 70 kg body weight, you'll get 875 calories per week as the difference. And that, again, adds up to a pound a month in weight difference. So these are things that you can actually change in your lifestyle that will actually help you lose weight. And this, again, tells you, this is the rate at which you will be burning kilocalories per minute with walking, running, and cycling. Obviously, vigorous intensity exercise, this is, what trained athletes can do, but the average person is not able to do that. So it's important for us to recognize that while exercise and doing vigorous exercise is not for everyone, physical activity is something that everybody can do. So it doesn't require any equipment, it doesn't require high levels of fitness and training, and you don't have to go anywhere to be physically active. So that is the thing that we need to emphasize. So a significant decrease in physical activity has contributed to the pandemic of obesity and related disorders. And this is important that NEAT or non-exercise associated thermogenesis, continuous and vital movements that does not involve a lot of vigorous activity. And it can explain the differences in individuals with similar phenotypes. And by doing simple manual task activities throughout the day, you will actually be improving your overall health. So this again, tells us about the relative risk of all-cause mortality across levels of physical activity. And you can see here that the less physically active, the more your risk of having of dying. And this is a similar study with physical fitness level and relative risk of mortality. Now this again looks at those who are doing some leisure time physical activity and daily sitting time, and you will find here that even for those who are very active, that means they're doing exercise and leisure time activity, if they are sitting all the time, they're having about 1.5 times more risk of dying than those who do not, who are not doing much of sitting. So for a lot of people whose work involves sitting in front of a computer or a desk, that is something that we have to recognize that itself is a problem. This again looks at diabetes and physical activity. You get the same things in terms of your sitting, you're more likely to have problems. So sedentary time was consistently and unfavorably associated with insulin sensitivity, which means that leads to diabetes. Is associated with high triglycerides, which Rachel pointed out. Breaks in sedentary time is favorably associated with triglycerides, and methods of measuring analysis, and of course, need to be standardized. There's another study that looked at the association between sedentary time and adults and their mortality. And the thing that I wanted to point out is that the strength of this association is most consistent for diabetes. So diabetes is one of the diseases in which physical activity is something that can prevent progression to diabetes in people who are pre-diabetic. So it's very important for people who are at risk of diabetes to be more physically active. So that is very important for us. So I'll conclude with a few comments. Peter Karmazik is a well-known scientist in this field. And one of the things that he has emphasized is the issue of moderate to vigorous physical activity being overemphasized as opposed to simply increasing physical activity and decreasing sedentary time. That in itself has a significant impact on the ability of people to be more healthy. So the emerging evidence of the role of sedentary behavior in health, which is independent of physical activity as such, tells us that, we have to prescribe movement rather than exercise as one of our ways of addressing the problems of health related to physical inactivity. So what we need, we are familiar with health care reform, so we need a health chair reform. So because everybody tries to find a comfortable chair. Maybe if you have an uncomfortable chair, it may be better because you have to get up and do something instead of sitting around. But the thing that I need to emphasize is that those who are prone to be inactive with obesity do not exercise regularly. So if we overemphasize that you have to do exercise, they may just stop not coming to you But on the other hand, we can get as much benefit as we can get from emphasizing the need for being physically active rather than having to go to a gym. Not that that going to a gym and exercising has additional benefits, but the thing is that physical activity itself has its benefits. So how do we increase? So doing things like stretching, turning, bending, 10 minutes of NEAT an hour. No, it's not a barrier. You don't have to go anywhere. Think beyond a lunchtime workout. Pretend it's 1985. So that means you don't have any email, you don't have any text messages and things like that. So that if you want to get something done, you just go somewhere and get it done. Take a stand and rearranging the office so that you have to move. Taking a break and actually getting out and doing some walking, a 15-minute walk in the afternoon is something that they have found to be more productive. Rethinking your commute and multitasking while watching TV. So do some work, cleaning and other things, instead of sitting down to watch TV. That is something that will be helpful. So this is a nice YouTube video that you have that, unfortunately I didn't set it up that you can play, but this, we can provide this to you. It's a very nice, provides a nice summary of how to change sedentary lifestyle and what are the consequences of being sedentary. So I'll end my talk here and I'll have Dr. Sexton talk about physical activity and behaviors. Thank you.
Are you getting motivated? Worrying about sitting? At least you walked over here, right? Yeah. Sure. Yeah, it is a nice video. And you can always, look us up on in Microsoft Outlook and shoot us, any of us, an email about resources while you're mentioning that. So while you're writing that down, I'm going to say that I will reiterate some of the important points that we've talked about here. And I'm taking the view in terms of thinking now about how to view these concepts as behaviors. So I'm a psychologist, and my specialty has to do with health and behavior. So what I want to do is get you thinking about physical activity and sedentary time as behaviors, and to think about the role of thinking in changing behaviors. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, about exercise and sedentary time as behaviors. So we know that there's a real emphasis on fitness, and I understand now that a big thing is people wearing exercise clothes in public, and people talk about this on social media. In spite of that, a very small percentage of adults, adolescents, and youth engage in regular activity. And so this is important because people want to do it. It's popular culture, and most people have started something and tried it. But the problem is they don't stick with it. And so this guy has a shirt that says use it or lose it, and he says didn't use it and lost it. And it gets harder and harder the longer you go without engaging in regular activity. So I want us to think about why understanding activity as a behavior is important. So our nation's activity is tracked in a number of ways. There are large prospective studies conducted by the Centers for Disease Control that study youth and adults and their behaviors over time, all kinds of things, wearing seat belts, eating lots of fat, and also activity behavior. So we know now that about half of adults aren't getting any kind of regular activity, and about half of youth don't participate in regular physical activity. And by now you know we're talking about two ways of thinking about activity. One is non-neat activity, sitting, laying down, and the other is doing stuff in a more structured way. About a quarter of children and adults say that they don't do any kind of structured physical activity. Part of that is because schools don't have as much PE anymore, and of course we have already talked about screen time. Only about 15% of adults participate in activity that's frequent and vigorous. As Dr. Mokshigundam said, it's pretty clear that that's not for everyone. So what I want you to walk away from today from this talk is to not think about activity in an all or none way, that either I'm out jogging and I'm doing vigorous activity or I'm doing nothing. What we need to think about is moving from doing nothing to increasing light activity, and to be thinking about structured activity as something that could be more moderate and not necessarily for long periods of time, because something is better than nothing. Only around 10% of adults who are sedentary are likely to begin a structured program within a year. So people who are sedentary, and especially people who have high risks for things like diabetes and cardiovascular disease, are really at risk. So what do we know about activity patterns from some of these large-scale surveys? It's important to know this so we can think about changing behaviors. We know that exercise and physical activity and NEAT activity is reasonably high in preschoolers and very young children. But as soon as they hit adolescence or middle school, it starts to decline for a variety of reasons, not excluding screen time. Who is inactive? You should know that women are much more inactive compared to men. So if you follow people respectively for long periods of time, men, especially young men, are more active. African American and Hispanic populations as a whole have more inactivity. And older adults are less active, and so are less affluent adults. So there are groups of individuals who are more at risk for the health consequences of being inactive. One of the things that I've spent a lot of time thinking about is why it is that about half of people who start an exercise program will drop out in the first 6 months. And interestingly, if you look at the relapse curves for starting a diet and dropping out, starting an exercise program, dropping out, trying to stop smoking and relapsing, also drug recovery programs, the relapse curves are similar, suggesting that these behavior patterns have something in common and they're important to know about. And then, of course, environmentally, it's harder and harder to be active, especially for kids. Schools have cut funding for PE classes starting in the 90s. And so all these things are important. So people study these things and these patterns and these behaviors. And what we find is if you look at the past, almost 50 years, what we see is the average hours per week being sedentary has gone up, and the average hours per week in programmatic structured activity has gone down. So these are two areas that are important to think about in research, but also for you to think about in terms of your own lifestyle and your own family. The other thing that we see is this is data from a study looking at 5 decades of occupationally related physical activity. And what we see in occupational activity is that light activity goes up, moderate activity goes way down, and sedentary activity is creeping up. So just like Dr. Mokshigundam said, moderate activity and getting up and going down the hall is going down because we're able to email and things like that. So it's sort of a triple whammy. Environmentally, we have fewer opportunities to exercise. Things are more convenient. There are more opportunities in our homes for being inactive and at work also, which is great that you're here now thinking about it at work. So what this leaves us with, is it's making it harder and harder and harder to get NEAT activity and to get programmatic activity. And it's important to think about, tying this in kids and youth and adults to cardiometabolic risks. So, and I want you to think about it both in, oh no, what have I done? Oh, it works, okay. I want you to think about it in terms of physical activity and going out and doing stuff and sedentary time. So the Centers for Disease Control will say that the recommended allotment of regular programmatic physical activity is about 150 minutes a week of cardiovascular activity and 2 sessions a week or more of weight training. Very difficult to do. And often people think about, I need 30 minutes a day. And we know that Dr. Keith, in her slide, showed us that that, in fact, is not the best way to think about exercise. The CDC actually has a program now called Exercise Light, where they're encouraging people to accrue programmatic activity in bouts as small as 10 minutes at a time. And I'm hoping that you'll think about it that way too. Increasing NEAT, but also thinking about, if I can exercise, why not do it 10 minutes at a time rather than 30 minutes to accrue these things? So we all know that we should exercise, but we know that we don't do it. We know that most people drop out within 6 months and that it's harder and harder to fit in NEAT activities during the day. So people like me actually study why it is that people start exercising and why they stick with it. And the data suggests that some of the reasons why people want to exercise primarily focus on physical reasons, that people worry about controlling their weight, and they worry about reducing the risk of cardiovascular disease and diabetes, especially as they get older. But I want to point out that there are a lot of mental health benefits to physical activity that have been shown in several decades of research. One is that we know that acute bouts of activity, including getting up from your desk and moving around, has been shown to reduce perceived stress and also anxiety, even anxiety disorders. The problem is that people often will do one bout of exercise and they hope that their anxiety will be reduced for weeks. Really, you have to do it fairly consistently. There are randomized clinical trials comparing physical activity programs to other kinds of programs to see how they might alleviate depression, and the data suggests that physical activity can be very helpful in the treatment of depression, including when people have major depressive disorder. On a more specific level, people stick with exercise more if they do something that they like. So you should pick something that you like. That's one of the reasons why people adhere to exercise. It also appears to increase self-esteem and a sense of mastery. So it may be that the reason that you feel good after being active, including just walking around at work, is because you feel like you've accomplished something. And of course, it can be helpful if you exercise with other people for social contacts. There's also data to suggest that in older adults, including adults with cognitive function and post-stroke, that exercise can increase cognitive function. And that includes getting up and just doing something. So this is something that is evaluated quite a bit in a number of trials. On the flip side of reasons why people exercise and why it works from a behavioral and psychological perspective is that people have a lot of barriers to activity. So you may be thinking about, yeah, I'm supposed to increase NEAT, and I know that it's important for my heart, my lipids to exercise, but I don't have time to go to the gym, or I don't even have time to leave my desk because I have meetings all the time, and my calendar is booked. And so there's been a lot of work to think about what are the barriers to activity and what can we do about it. Lack of time is something that most people cite, although some people are able to overcome that and fit it in. Many people will say that they're fatigued and they don't have the energy to do it. I would say that all or none thinking about activity, that I have to do a lot or nothing, contributes to that cycle, and also motivation. And there have been a number of studies done to try to think about what might be motivating to people. And the answer is that it might not be the same for everyone. It can cost a lot, although we've already seen that sometimes activity can be free. Illness or injury can be barriers. Some people just don't like exercise and they feel uncomfortable when they exercise. When I lived in Chicago, I did a large study looking at women in urban Chicago and their barriers to exercise, and I learned that taking care of your hair was a real barrier for some people to trying to exercise during the day, and they felt uncomfortable. So if it's a barrier for you and it impedes your ability to exercise, then it's worth considering. Some people feel like they don't have skills, they're worried about getting injured. All those things are important. I'm not going to show this video here, but if you want to know more about strategies that have been shown in research to help you even get started engaging in exercise, if you go to cdc.gov, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and just put in physical activity, you will find a number of videos that give you tips for actually starting something. And then strategies for doing things like lifting weights and doing squats the right way, how to do them in your office. People have spent a lot of time thinking about how to get you going. From a psychologist's perspective, in terms of thinking about physical activity, there's a difference between getting started and then continuing to be active, and then maintaining it over time. So I'd like you to also think not only about activity as not an all or none event, but thinking about the process of starting something, but then making sure that you continue to put one foot in front of the other, so to speak, and then maintaining it over time. Because the problem that we see in exercise is starting and stopping. So how many people in here have had an exercise program before and then stopped for a period of at least 2 weeks? How many people have done that and stopped for longer than a year? And that's pretty typical, and it's kind of the thing that people don't want to talk about. But exercise adherence is really important. So we can even think about not just, I need to exercise, but what happens in the cycle of actually stopping exercise. The research has documented that exercise is helpful. Most people think it's a good idea, but if you've dropped out for a period of time, you're at greater risk for dropout again, just like with recidivism from other sorts of things. So what might happen is people might think about exercising, and let's say you're not exercising now. So if you could take an honest look at yourself, and right now, if you say that you're sedentary or inactive, raise your hand, that you feel yourself right now as being sort of sedentary. So you're here because maybe you're contemplating exercising. By the time you leave today, you might be realizing that you need to get some exercise, and I'm talking about moving from sedentary to neat, light to moderate activity, thinking about exercising in 10-minute bouts. So you consider maybe taking a class. So when you enroll a class, you decide that you're going to do the Stairmaster program, and you participate. That's great. When the course ends, what's going to happen? Are you going to stop and then have these barriers kick in, or are you going to keep going? Actually, the Stairmaster program is a great idea from a research perspective. There are very well-known studies that have done randomized studies putting signs at the base of escalators and stairs and seeing whether the signs promote physical activity. Having signs at the base of escalators dramatically increased people taking the stairs instead. And it was a basic sign. It had a picture of a flabby heart going like this, and it said, your heart needs exercise, here's your chance. And it was an arrow up. And it was great. As soon as they took the signs away, people took the escalator again. Without the prompts, they stopped. So it's very interesting to think about this cycle. So there are a lot of ways to think about the importance of staying motivated, and we know a lot more now about what can be helpful. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of activity as a behavior, and I want you to think of it as something that you can start, but also I want you to think about the process of stopping, because that's often where we all are. It's easier, to lay around and binge watch. My husband and daughter went out of town, and I binge watched all 13 episodes of The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix in a weekend, and I just laid there, and I realized, hey, I could get up, I could walk around. You don't have to give up all your favorite sorts of things, but I want you to think about a process of sort of backsliding. The process of activity you might think of as unfolding on a continuum from initiating it to making it a regular habit to maintaining it over time. And that's the way I want you to think about your behavior. But there's also a process of dropping out from consistent health-promoting levels. And this is something that I've been studying in my own work. Thinking about a slip in activity, that is, you plan to get up from your desk and do that 4 days a week, but you only do it twice. You didn't quite meet your goals, maybe it's a little slip. What you don't want is a slip to become a lapse, where 2 weeks go by, you don't do anything, and then that becomes a full-blown relapse where you do nothing. So there's a psychology to thinking about this process. So quickly, I'll tell you about a study that I did a number of years ago where I followed people for a year, looking at their activity at a baseline. Then I gave them diaries for a couple of months. We followed them monthly, and then we did a 1-year follow-up. What we found is that 88% of our people in our study had a personal history of dropout when they came to us. And I asked them, what did you consider in your head to be a dropout in your mind, where you stopped thinking of yourself as a regular exerciser? And the average was about 2 weeks. It was very frequent for people to kind of bounce around. People had an average of what they considered 3 dropouts in the previous 5 years. So have you ever thought of yourself as a dropout? That might be all or none thinking, and I want you to avoid that. So commonly I found that people thought about missing a week as sort of a lapsed period. They planned to exercise 3 or 4 times a week. Most people ended up missing weeks at a time. Naturally, if you're sick or something like that, they can make a difference. But what I have found is that, when I did my follow-up, at least a third of the people weren't exercising regularly in the previous month, and 15% had at least 3 months with no exercise. Are you cycling back and forth like this? So pay attention to those patterns and know that you don't have to be all or none thinking about activity. You can keep it simple. If you set goals, it can be really very helpful. If you're going to set goals for your activity, rather than having somebody else set them, the data says you're going to stick with it more if you set it yourself. If you have goals that are flexible, rather than all or none, you'll stick with it. And if you go for time rather than distance, you're also more likely to stick with it. So there is data to suggest that. What I'd like you to think about is the 2-pronged approach that we've been talking about here. Reduce sedentary time, increase NEAT activity. Sit at your desk for 15 or 20 minutes and then get up. Move from light activity to moderate activity. Anything is better than nothing. Make it as convenient as you can. A couple of things as we finish up. Psychology research says that there are a number of cognitive techniques that are successful for avoiding slips. One is that if you hate being active or if you hate taking the stairs and that sort of thing, if you focus on the environment around you rather than thinking about your breathing and your heart pounding and how miserable you are, or using a dissociative strategy, you're much more likely to stick with exercise. Data also suggests that if you plan ahead and think about your own personal reasons for increasing NEAT or increasing bouts of structured activity that are brief and develop a decision balance sheet weighing the cost and benefits, you're more likely to adhere and stick with activity. So here's what a decision balance sheet is that you could do and tape in your office or tape at home. Think about what the benefits would be, what you would gain. Maybe you want to gain better conditioning, more energy, and then you think about, well, what are the losses? Because there are always losses. Maybe you have less time to do something else. What about goals that are important to someone else? Maybe you want to hike with your kids, but you're worried about spending less time with your family if you're being active. A big one can be less time to work because you're busy at work and you're trying to fit in workplace activity. What about you're worried about your boss thinks it takes time away from work? What can you do? One of the things that I've done that I admit is a challenge is I have free weights that I put under my desk. And I've told Dr. Mokshagunam that sometimes I trip over them and I still don't use them. But something is better than nothing. I'm keeping it in my office. I'm getting up. I'm walking around. So think about a decision balance sheet. Really, what's keeping you from activity? Is it cognitive? Is it emotional? Is it something from you? Is it something about what someone else might think? Think about the costs and the benefits. Some final tips. So do a decision balance sheet. What are the costs and benefits? Tape it up. Get support from other people. Write it down. For people who are interested in maintaining exercise and maintaining weight loss, 30 years of research on obesity have shown the two best predictors of keeping weight off are writing it down and exercising. And if you stop doing it, you stop writing it down, that's cheating. You have to even write down when you don't do it. People do better over time if they choose purposeful activity. A big thing now in community health is workplace meetings and walking meetings. So if you need to talk to somebody rather than sitting down, walk around the halls, make it purposeful. You may be more likely to stick with things in that way. And then lastly, consider small bouts of exercise. It really does add up. Think increased NEAT. Think 15 minutes sitting, 2 minutes up. Think weights at my desk. Think 10 minutes at a time. So if you build it into your day at home and at work, you have a better chance of sticking with it. And then the last thing that I'd like to advocate for is don't just think about starting. Think about sticking with it and think about the process of slipping and how slips could turn into longer periods at which point you might start thinking of yourself as a non-exerciser. And as a psychologist, I try to move people away from all or none thinking about health. And so you avoid a relapse and you become regularly active. Thanks. So I know folks have to go to work. If anybody wants to stick around or ask questions of any of the speakers, we're happy to take questions up here or down in front.
It's like, I'm impressed. We got everything. Sheila, I'll let you introduce us as the one who brought me the flicker. So I don't know if she's going to come back. Or Isaac can take this.
Here, let's get out of here. Would you mind emailing me the whole set of slides? And also,
I
final
spelled
proposal.
behavior. Yeah, I spelled behavior wrong on your opening slide. I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I did. Because I did it really fast. Running really fast.
I'm sorry, Rob.
No, you're fine. It was one of those things where, like, I had, like, I thought I was going to have all morning to read, and then take my volume and drop it off at the bed, and then get here, meet with Chet, you know, and just piled up. I just so I didn't even look. For a month to start with, and then